with us. So it's really important, right? Good. I'm excited, very excited. So it's really important for people to say your names when you speak because of the way the screen situation works with the interpreter. Okay, so before we speak, we just say Roberta, and then the interpreter will do what they do. And I think I saw a hand. Whose hand did I see?
Sorry, that was my my misclick on the interface. My apologies.
Oh,
Mark Harrington.
No problem. No problem at all. Okay. So why don't we get our slideshow going?
All right. Just still admitting some people as they're trickling in. So give me just one sec. Yeah, why don't we go ahead and get started?
Great. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Roberta Hunt, and I'm one of the facilitators for today's meeting. So welcome to the Equity Advisory Group. Before you speak, please say your name and for the ASL interpreter to interpret your name, and then go on with your point. Okay, next slide. Closed captions are in English and Spanish. English closed captions are available within Zoom and YouTube. Users can follow this link to view both English and Spanish captions in a separate window. /IBR.news/captions. Okay, next slide. How to access closed captions. At the bottom middle of your screen, you should see a menu of options. If you can't see the menu, hover your mouse over the bottom middle of the screen, and then click on the CC icon, and a separate window with captions will appear. Next slide. ASL interpretation. In the effort to continue to center equity, there is an ASL interpreter in addition to closed captioning. To make sure the interpreter is always visible, please right-click their video and select Spotlight Video. For those watching on YouTube, when we screen share, you will be able to see the slideshow, closed captioning, and the ASL interpreter. You will still be able to hear different people speaking, but may not see them. All right, next slide. Webinar participation tips. Thank you for joining us today. Please join audio by either phone or computer, not both. We encourage panelists to turn on your video. We do like to see everybody. Please keep your audio on mute when not speaking. And if you experience technical difficulties, please contact program staff at 360-329-6744. Next slide. Public input instructions. There will be an opportunity to provide brief public input later in the meeting today. To submit input after the meeting, email comments to info@interstatebridge.org with EAG Public Comment in the subject line. Call 888-503-6735 and state EAG Public Comment in your message. Next slide. Okay, so for our agenda today, first we're going to start with a getting to know you. Here we do this work together and we'll be together for a while. It's important that we know each other in our professional capacity and just as human beings walking around or moving around in this world. All right. We get to hear from our program administrator, Greg Johnson. We'll have a report about report out from EAG member check-ins from Jake. Talk about our equity framework and status update. We get time with Chris Lepe today. Then we're going to do some data dives and discussion, thinking about what is the research that we need, what information do we need to collect or to find to help us think about how to be the most equitable in terms of impacts and benefit, right? Public comment and wrap up. So we have a full agenda and off we go. Next slide. All right. We're going to do getting to know you for about 20 minutes. I'm going to introduce Brent, and Brent, you're going to tell us how this is going to go in terms of breakout rooms, and I'll quickly explain what people will do. All right, Brent.
You'll be automatically moved to your breakout rooms. We have Jonelle, Jake, Salome, and Dr. Hunt facilitating and taking notes. And this will go for 20 minutes. The public will view just a slide for the next 20 minutes, but have fun. And they're going to open now unless anyone has any objections. Jake?
Brent, really quick. We won't have facilitators. We're just it's pretty informal. Just getting together and chatting, and no report out or anything. So we just want folks to be candid and use this to get to know each other a little bit. Oh. And I put the prompt in the chat. What is one thing that's keeping you centered or grounded right now? And this could be related to your professional life, your personal life, whatever that question says to you. Just a prompt.
All right, so we'll open all those now. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, this is the interpreter speaking. You didn't want me to interpret the breakout rooms, or?
Nope, not for the breakout rooms.
Okay, so come back around 20 minutes or so.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Shona. The other EAG members are in a breakout room, so I'll put you in there. The question is, what is keeping you centered now?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Pat. Other members are in breakout rooms, so I'm going to move you
Okay.
to one of those now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, John. Is that
Thank
you
you.
that just joined, John? And to our members of the public who are joining via YouTube, there's about 13 minutes left in the breakout room.
I'm sure aware of Child Friends. They are a nationally recognized organization that does research.
Just want to say welcome to everyone who has joined us via YouTube. This is Brent Hamlin, part of the IBR program staff, and we are about 7 minutes to the end of our breakout room, and we appreciate you giving our EAG members time just to kind of reflect on what's keeping them centered and grounded right now. Appreciate you all.
So, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. So, how was that for people?
It's good.
Excellent.
Yes.
Yeah, that was really sweet. Thank you. Thank you all for time with you. All right. So, Jake, my agenda has gone missing. Will you tell me what we should do next?
Yes, we are doing a program administrator update. So let me pull it.
Ah, yes. So we get to pass to Greg to hear a program update.
Well, let's see, is it still afternoon yet? Well, 1 minute. Good afternoon, everybody. Almost good evening. So I'd like to walk you through some of the things that the IBR team has been going through over the last number of years. Once again, my name is Greg Johnson, and I'm the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program Administrator. So let's go to the next slide. So we, as many of you know, we submitted back in March to our federal partners, FHWA and FTA, a purpose and need statement that had both climate and equity in it. And so we have not received the written guidance back. We have received verbal guidance. So we're waiting for that. Hopefully it'll be this week yet that we will get that. But what other things we've been talking to them about is the changes that folks, both in the community and our partners, want to see for this program that's different from what the previous planning effort brought forth. So we've been talking to folks and gathering what those changes look like, and whether it's equity or climate or design changes that folks want to see implemented. So we've been having those conversations. We are moving forward to start looking at what those changes mean. And we also received an analysis from the feds that says there's 4 potential pathways for us to be on to wrap up the environmental process. And so the one good thing is that all of our partners and everyone that we have spoken to has agreed that we don't want to be on the 4th path, which is starting over and adding some additional years to what we're trying to get accomplished here. So we also, on Thursday of this week, we have a discussion with our executive steering group where we're going to provide them with our path forward. And we're looking for feedback from them. This path forward, we're going to take to the our bi-state legislative group for their nod and approval to say, yes, you guys are going in the right direction. So we also are going to talk to them about the progress on the equity framework that some of you have been providing excellent input into. We're also hoping to have updates on our federal guidance. And once again, we're hoping to have that written guidance from our federal partners. So the outcomes that we're looking for from the executive steering group is to provide that feedback so we can shape our direction going forward. And once again, we are looking for alignment around messages that we can share with the bi-state legislative committee. We want to make sure that as a as the IBR team that we are aligned with our, not only our advisory groups, including EAG, but also with ESG, the Executive Steering Group, on messages that we are carrying forward to the Bi-State Legislative Committee. So next slide. So at our last community advisory group, we reviewed program updates, pathways forward, and once again, the process to update the environmental documentation, which is the 4 pathways. We reached consensus on the community advisory group charter, and we also reached consensus on community values and priorities. We are also looking at some small revisions to be made to be presented at our upcoming meeting in early June. So next slide. So we're doing individual check-ins with our community advisory group. Some of the things that we have heard from the group and as well as in our individual conversations, there's a desire to move faster, to get to discussing the hard decisions that lie ahead of us. They want to talk about how many lanes are going to be across the bridge, what type of bridge is going to be built, will there be an interchange for Hayden Island, what type of transit, high capacity transit mode is going to be used for this bridge. So those are some of the things that folks want to get to, and we're putting together a plan that's going to detail exactly when these questions are going to be put on the table and when we can expect answers, and when those answers will be taken to the Bi-State Legislative Group. So we also heard that there's an appreciation of the historical context and the historical information that set the foundation for where we were at and where we are going to. Breakout groups are productive and allow for more direct contact member to member. So one of the things we tried to do today in having this kind of get to know you session is for folks to understand who they're on the team with and some of the things that move the needle for other folks that are their team members. So we're looking for a communication process that we can update you between meetings, since we are now at the pace of 1 meeting per month. We are looking at how we can, within that month, get information to you so you can know and be up to date where the program is at. Folks appreciate the individual check-in meetings. Those things seem to be very helpful. And once again, folks want to know how their voice will influence the program. And that goes up to that first dash, strong desire to move faster and begin discussing details. So we're going to have a plan that talks about when will the discussion on the number of lanes, when will that be ready? When will we have the data to do the analysis? So all of those things, we're planning on getting detailed schedules to share with each of the advisory groups, as well as the Bi-State Legislative Group. So next up is Tanya Adams, who is heading up a special program. She helps with equity for the program and the DBE issues, but she has a special assignment that she's going to talk to you guys about this evening. So Tanya, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Greg. It's going to be amazing if this happens. So my assignment is, in order for us to have equity on this program, we need to work with our young people in the community. And when I was talking to Greg and to Rob, we thought about the possibility of having an internship program, but not only for college students, but also for high school students. And this is a way to create more diversity and inclusion in our industry. So when I say diversity, I mean from our kids with disabilities, gender, age, sex, religious background, the whole gamut. So right now we are looking at hiring 10+ engineers starting this summer. The pay is anywhere from 15 to 18, depending on what year they are in school. We do understand that high school students don't know everything. Even though they think they do, they really don't. But it's an opportunity to give them to experience what engineering, what planning, communications, accounting is all about. At the same time of working with a firm virtually, we're also going to do some mentoring and sponsoring. I'm working with a young lady by the name of Jenna. We're putting together sessions that the students can get together, because building relationships with everyone is going to change how we look at each other and how we work together. So I need some help from everyone on this committee. You have until Monday. If you know of a young person out there who is looking for a summer opportunity, or someone you know who needs that great exposure and that mentoring and that connecting, please send your resume. And I believe that Jake is going to send out the application process. And it's just a resume to turn in. On Monday, we're going to start reviewing all the kids' resumes. But a project like this will allow a student who's in high school to say, I want to be in that field, and then go on to college and still be able to come back every summer. But what a difference that makes, working on a project in your own community. The key to this internship is diversity. We want to make sure every young person out there, or even a person who's in junior college who decided I wanted to go back, but everyone's young compared to my age, but and making sure that we're looking at even people with disabilities, including them all in. If we do this now, this world is going to be amazing. So that's our ask of all of you. We need assistance, and I'm sure we all know some young person out there who needs some help. I think Yolanda has a question or a high five.
I have a question, Tanya. And I think what you're talking about is awesome. But are we talking about students that are specifically in the north part of Oregon or in the southwest region of Washington? Or are we speaking about youth and young adults from the entire state, from both states?
Both states we're looking at, yes. We are including the projects in both states. You're looking in the footprint of where the project is.
Okay, so we're talking Southwest Washington and the Portland area.
I believe so. Am I correct, Greg? I'm not that great, Yolanda, with that area yet. I'm working on it.
Oh, okay.
I'm in Illinois, everyone.
So we have some opportunities.
When you get the posting, it's all in there.
Okay.
And some opportunities, because we're going to be still working remotely until probably September. So we do have some opportunities to take a look at folks who are not necessarily directly in the area, but we're trying to look in the program area to draw candidates.
Okay. And that kind of touches is similar to a suggestion I was going to make tonight in regards to maybe the IBR funding pre-apprenticeship programs in that area. Because I went to a graduation of the iron workers on last Friday, and one of the instructors actually instructs in Tukwila and also instructs at Local 29 down in Portland. And the last meeting we had, there was a large section in Southwest Washington that was low income. And I figured we could focus because we're going to need bodies. Everyone knows that there's a shortage of workers. And if we can at this time start training them and especially the ones in the lower income areas and focusing on the recruitment there, it would be awesome.
I will tell you, Yolanda, we did have that discussion. I know we were contacting Benson, and they have a great trades program. And that is true. Not every kid is going to want to go off to college. Some are going to do some things with the trades, and that's our next part. But for this summer, because of being virtual, it's really hard to do trades.
Okay.
We're going to have to wait to. We're going to have to
Okay.
wait till you guys open up a little bit more. We just got announced in Illinois that we're fully open.
Oh, congratulations! Congratulations.
Yeah. I want to make space for Matt's Roberta, and I want to make space for Matt's question, and then to move on as well, just in the interest of time.
Lily's question as well.
All right, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everyone. And this all sounds really great. I'm excited that we're going to open up more slots. Could you just repeat again the areas of focus? I know engineering was one of them, but I also want to make sure that I know the other areas of interest for students, both in high school and in college, so I can pass that along.
So actually, the engineering part was for the college students.
Okay.
And for high school students, we were looking at anyone with communication skills, math skills, any of those soft skills, or students who have a desire to want to look at what's out there for, I shouldn't say engineering, because not all kids want to be engineers, and nor do we only hire engineers, but someone who wants exposure to planning, marketing. How do you write a proposal?
Excellent. Thank you for the clarification.
Governmental affairs will be another area that we also probably have interns in.
So originally, when we first started thinking about this, I said, oh, we can have 30 interns. But with COVID, we realized we probably need to start off a little bit smaller with our number, and each year keep adding more interns on, especially if students come back each year.
Okay, so very quickly, Ilona and then Caitlin.
Hi there. I just had a clarifying question. Can you explain what supports that these students will have? I have run internships before, and I know that there are ways that they can be successful and ways that they can't be. And so I'm just curious if you can explain, like, just briefly, what kind of supports that they will have and the intentionality in this internship.
So, if they don't have the laptop, they don't have the Wi-Fi, all those things will be provided for them, but also setting them up with a mentor. We do know that the first day when an intern starts, it's a little bit lonely when you don't know anyone. So we are scheduling like meet and greet with Greg, with Rob, and a few other gentlemen. I think Jonelle is going to be part of that. But throughout it, we're going to put sessions so the students can get together. From how do you get set up a bank? How do you look at writing a resume? Just all those other skills and how to network, and also put on a presentation as well on what they learned over the summer. So to do those things with them and just making sure that we're staying connected with them throughout the year and just not coming to make some money or have them sit in the corner and do filing. We want people to really work with them and open up their eyes to this opportunity.
So I just had a very, hopefully, quick question. Thank you. This is Caitlin Reff, City of Portland. Tanya, thank you so much for that overview. It just sounds excellent. And thank you, Jake, for posting in the chat the link to the website with more information. I was just getting ready to send an email to people, and I noticed that it says on the website, the deadline's passed. All right, so
we're extending it. We're extending it to Monday, because I really do need everyone on this call, their assistance and their help. And what a better group to come to. And the fact that you guys are so involved in equity. And in order to have equity, we need inclusion and diversity. So yes, the deadline has expired, but Jenna, who gets the resumes, she knows that resumes will be coming in, knock on wood, between now and Monday morning.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. We are going to move on, and Jake is going to give us a report out on EAG member check-ins.
Thank you, Roberta. And yes, this is Jake War. So thank you all again for the individual check-ins that we've had. It's been great to just get to know you all a little better and get your thoughts and feedback on how things are going with the EAG so far, and answer some questions about the program. But our feedback that we got, I've tried to summarize here. Obviously heard a lot of great ideas from you all, but to kind of give the high level overview, these are kind of the themes. So I heard that folks feel like this is a worthwhile group, that is worth your time, which was very reassuring. I'm glad you feel that that this is a meaningful experience, that your participation on this committee matters, that this committee itself matters. So that was clear to me. Heard that time and again from folks. And also appreciation for each other as far as how the group is composed. We have a lot of diversity of experience and backgrounds and knowledge, and so there was recognition that this is a strong team. Heard clearly that the small group discussion, similar to what they heard around the community advisory group check-ins, that the small group discussions are productive and valuable, and that you all want more time allotted for those, being talked at less and being able to talk yourselves more and provide your input to the program. Heard that there's a desire to see some more data to inform recommendations. So that's part of what we're going to be doing a little bit later this evening. And then this was also a theme with the community advisory group as well. But with you all said that you would like kind of a better understanding of where we are, where we're going, and what as a group you can meaningfully influence about the program. I know it's been, there's been some changes as we've gone along, some confusion as far as the process. So we are going to try to do our best to keep you informed, keep you apprised of things as we go forward. I wanted to check and see with, for those of you who, which I think I've spoken with just about everybody, but is there anything that folks would like to kind of add that they feel from their input isn't really reflected here? Acknowledging that this can't get all the detailed feedback, but if there's some big things, definitely feel welcome to share those. All right, well then, if not, I am going to pass it next to Chris Lepe, who's part of our equity panel that we have for this program. So, and he'll give us an update on the equity framework. So Chris, please take it away.
All right, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Excellent. So hello, everybody. Chris Lepe here again with you today. I'm going to provide you with a brief update in regards to the equity framework that's kind of towards the beginning stages of development. And this will help to provide a little bit of context for the breakout group discussion a little bit later today. And so as I had noted in prior meetings, some of the first elements of the framework will be providing information about the program, including the historic context for the area, as well as the equity definition and approach that you recently developed. But a really important part is also figuring out what kind of structure will help us ensure transparency, accountability, and equitable outcomes as part of this program or this project. So today I want to share the basic structure that we're considering at this point, answer any questions that you may have, get a pulse of whether you think we're going in the right general direction, and take any high-level suggestions from you. So as you can see in the diagram here, I just wanted to kind of walk through each of these steps with you The first is the results. So that is the big picture objective or the outcomes that we're seeking, and really answering the question, who will be better off as a result of the work that we're doing. So one example of that might be the promotion and fostering of economic and social inclusion for vulnerable communities, just to give you one idea. Then the question is, what would be an indicator? How will we gauge whether or not we're reaching those intended results? How will we know we're getting closer to the results that we're seeking? And so one example would be improved health and safety for vulnerable communities, or you can have, for example, vehicle miles travel reduction, presumably between now and a certain future date. Then the question is, what will we do? What are the actions, or sorry, what will we do to achieve the results and indicators? It's sort of the question of the how. And we might have one or likely more than one way to be able to get to those indicators. So for example, ensuring sidewalk access and safety, design features that might help reduce vehicle miles traveled within the project. And then finally, moving into activities or actions, what will we do? So what are the actions? What kind of activities will help us implement these strategies? And so that might include departments of transportation, for example, from both sides, requiring that the project design include specific parking and riding measures for bikes, scooters, and so on and so forth to promote multimodal vehicle use while protecting seniors and people with disabilities, just as one example. And then finally, in regards to measuring success, this is kind of a question of follow through and accountability. It could be coupled with, embedded within the activity section. But this final step was really trying to speak to that concreteness that I think a lot of you are looking for. Who's going to be the implementer? What's the mechanism for accountability? For example, in regards to project design, contracts and procurement, NEPA mitigation, and so on and so forth. What are the sources of funding and a timeline? So with that, curious as to whether, what you think about this general structure. Does it make sense? Do you have any questions, any suggestions?
Matt, and then Yolanda.
Yeah, so I just have this is Matt Sears with Disability Rights Oregon. I just had a quick suggestion, which was, as I look at this approach for determining screening criteria and performance measures, I think it's also helpful to think about, understanding what data is actually available now, and determining if we're going to have performance measures, we need to know where we started in order to actually measure that success or not. So being able to figure out now, what's the data that's actually available and what can we actually measure, I think that's really critical and important.
Well, Matt, that's thank you for sharing that, and that's great because we're going to be diving into some of the data that we have at this point in our next conversation. So that'll be shared out, and you guys will have a conversation about what else we need. What other existing data sources might we be able to tap into? So that's great. Somebody else had a hand up?
Yes, this is Yolanda Birch with WashDOT. My question is, in regards to the performance measures, are the performance measures going to be based on just the areas of the Southwest region of Washington and the Portland area, or statewide? Because my understanding is that the agreement with the feds is that this is a statewide, even though it's focused on the bridges in a specific area, it's supposed to encompass the entire states or both states. So are we going to have two different measures?
That's a good question. You know what, I'm going to actually hand that off to Jake, Jonelle, or Greg.
I'm happy to take it. Yolanda, that's a good question. I think in Some instances, it could potentially be, looking at some statewide measures, but specifically the measures that we'll primarily be looking at will be regional. And so if you think about kind of workforce opportunity, whether or not our stated communities of concern, which of course, thanks to this group, our stated communities of concern is defined in our definition of equity. We're going to need to track what progress we've made in terms of equitable outcomes, both in terms of economic opportunity as well as in terms of ensuring good access to the bridge, whether it's transit, whether it's accessibility for folks in the region, I think, primarily. But that does not necessarily mean there won't be other ways to look at the data. But primarily, we're going to be looking at, I think, this region.
Okay, but we still do need to include each state also, because that's part of the requirements, I believe.
Great point. Any other folks that wanted to jump in with any questions or suggestions, clarification?
Hey, Chris, this is Fernando Martinez. For me, one of the challenges that I'm having personally is kind of like putting all of this in perspective, to your first bullet point there, the big picture, right? As I look at this whole concept, putting it all together into a framework that I could visualize, it would make more sense to me, because what I'm seeing this slide today. I saw another slide a month ago. And so I'm trying to kind of put it all together in my head. And as I look at these things. So for me, kind of a roadmap of how things are developing and where we're going would be very, very valuable. But that's just me, right? That's the way I kind of like look at things.
No, that's really good. So I guess it's also a question for the project team. If that's an item we can come back to one of the next EAG meetings with a little bit more clarity in terms of the next steps of the development of the framework. Would that make sense?
Yeah, that to me, I think I know that you're leading this conversation, but I think that this is a question for the team, right? For the leadership team here. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
So Fernando, this is Greg Johnson. So we are taking our big picture direction to our executive steering group, as well as we're going to be taking that to the bi-state ledge for their sign off. And what we're going to try and do is start creating decision points, and when those decisions will be worked on and discussed and brought to fruition. So we are hoping to have that sometime, hopefully next month. We will have a bigger planning picture of where the program is going overall. So as far as some of the specifics regarding the equity framework, those things will fall back on the EAG to start looking at the individual pieces of the equity framework and how they will be moving forward.
Thank you.
One thing we want to think about with thinking about the framework is performance measures, like really like what are some of the outcomes we want to see as just a way to, because those are the things that get, those are the byproducts of what's happened.
So kind of a point of clarification here, and I think in addition, this is Jake, I think an additional slide would have been helpful here, was showing what we showed you last time, kind of that the equity framework basic structure, where we've got the equity definition, we've got our how we are measuring success, and that, as well as how we're going to implement and what our overall objectives are. And so this piece kind of speaks to both those objectives as well as how we are going to be measuring success. That's kind of the goal of how we get there. But as far as, you know, digging into some more of really what the framework looks like and how this is incorporated, next meeting we will have a lot more that we'll discuss there. John L., did you want to add anything there?
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right, Jake. You'll recall that, again, the framework, we sometimes can get lost in the alphabet soup. The way to think about the framework is an equity lens. It's a tool that will both shape the way in which the program implements equity based on our equity definition, as well as based on the outcomes that we want to see. And part of the outcome area requires this section. So this is zooming in on kind of the performance measure side of the equity framework. And so it will all make more sense once we kind of see it all pulled together. What we've been working on are various components. And so again, we worked on the definition. Now we're working on the performance measures. There'll be other components. The sum of all of those elements will be the equity framework. And part of the discussion we'll need to have with the EAG once we're complete with the framework, and as well as we're developing these measures, is how do we actually operationalize the framework?
Address public comments we've received, and we'll briefly touch on the history of Section 30 and how the application meets the approval criteria of the Section 30 plan district.
I think someone just chimed in here. Brent, is that perhaps someone is not on mute? But just to wrap up that piece, so more to come. Perhaps we move on to the next section, I think, Jake.
We can do that. So that's where we are kind of taking a little bit of a step back from this so that we can better inform you all as we are developing these screening criteria and performance measures, because that right now, as far as the program is concerned, those are the real priorities. Is how we, once we are going to be looking at different design options for the program, how do we evaluate those against each other, and then how do we measure success in the long term? But to do that, kind of need to know where we start. So I'm going to walk through kind of a lot of data. Hopefully you've had a chance to look through the slides a little bit in preparation. I'm going to actually skip forward a bit to the discussion questions so that you can be thinking about these as I walk through this. So the three questions we're going to discuss when we get there is, what are one or two things to you that stand out from this data? What additional data or information would you like to explore to help inform your thinking? And what additional data or information do you have access to that you could possibly bring to the table that would help us both understand baseline conditions as they are on the ground currently, but also moving forward, you know, how we can measure change, how we can measure positive equity outcomes. So be thinking about that, and I'll walk through these, and please feel free as I'm going to stop me with clarifying questions. I'm going to try to just spend like 15, maybe 20 minutes on this, but hopefully get to the group discussions as quickly as possible. So, and some of this information I have shared, we've shared with you in the past. Some of it's more detailed or refined. But to give you an overview, looking at our different groups, our different communities that we identified in our equity definition, this is the picture of what it looks like. So for people of color, and looking at the IBR program area, about a quarter of the residents in that area are people of color. And what we're calling people of color are anyone on the census who didn't select white and non-Hispanic. Then compare that to the metro, it's fairly similar to the Portland metro region, just a few percentage points lower. In terms of people with disabilities, we see a pretty interesting discrepancy there. So in the program area, about 20% of residents have a physical or mental disability, and that's compared to 12% to the region as a whole. So a bit higher in the program area. Also, low-income households, about 32% or a third, 1 out of every 3 households in the program area would be considered low income. I've got the definition up there of what we're defining low income, at or below 200% federal poverty. Can explain that if you have the question, but I won't for now. But about a quarter of residents in the Portland metro region are low income. So more in the program area than we would expect, given the region average. As far as people born outside the US, because one of our groups is immigrant and refugee populations, about 7% of those who are in the program area are born outside the US, compared to 13% region, so a little lower. Households without a vehicle, this wasn't necessarily one of our groups under equity, but certainly relates to transportation equity. 15% of households do not have a vehicle, and that's higher than in the region. So we have a lot of folks who don't have a car, and so they rely on other means to meet their transportation needs. Older adults, similar to people with disabilities, and for older adults, this is looking at people over 65, 20% in our program area are at that age, compared to 14% in the region. And then finally, young people, 21% are 25 or younger, compared to 29% in the region. So it's a little bit of an older, the program area is a little older than the rest of the region on average. All right, so now I'm going to go through some maps, and so we can kind of have a picture of what the program area looks like today and what's changed since 2010, really when the last project was underway and they developed the alternative that we're working from here. So in 2010, the communities of color in the program area, it was not a really strong concentration of communities of color. But just outside the program area, if you look at to the east of it, where Clark College is, and then along Highway 500 going east or to the right on the screen, you do have communities of color that in 2010 where there was still a strong concentration, and then that got even more pronounced in 2019. So the program area grew more diverse. The region also grew more diverse in terms of race and ethnicity. But then in particular, you see again that the area near Clark College and east of Clark College, we have a lot of communities of color. In fact, one census tract, which is roughly, they do about 1,000 people in a census tract. Over half of that census tract are people of color. You can also see down on the Oregon side, the really north boundary of Oregon along the Columbia River. We do have high concentrations there of communities of color that are more diverse generally than the region, where the region is about 28%, like I said, but those are between 30 and 50, so a bit higher. Moving on to people with disabilities. Now we haven't mapped this out yet, but just wanted to reemphasize that in our program area, 20% of people indicated that they have a physical or mental disability, compared to 12% in the region. The population born outside the US, I showed that stat. In 2010, we had 10% in the program area were born outside the US. Not particularly high, given what the region was at the time, which was 13%. But again, we have a concentration over near Clark College and east that's really close to the program area, and a little bit near downtown Vancouver, where it's a bit higher, or at least closer to the average for the region in 2010. In 2019, it actually is an interesting trend where in the program area, there's a smaller percentage of people born outside the US, but more concentrated, again, back in that area, east of Clark College and around there. Looking at income, and I think you're probably, hopefully starting to see some trends here, because that area that I keep referring to has a high concentration of low-income households. But also the program area itself is above average. It's in 2010, it was 36% low income, which was even higher than it is today. But it's still 32%. So that's 1 out of every 3 households. And we see a concentration in downtown Vancouver. We see that same concentration east of Clark College, and then outside the program area on the Oregon side, the census tract where PDX is, the airport, is also a high concentration of low-income households. Older adults, I showed that the percentage of older adults was pretty high for the program area, given our region average. 2010, this wasn't quite the case. You had some pockets in our program area that were high concentrations of people 65 and older, and it was about 12%. But then today, or at least 2019, we have several more concentrations, including in the program area. And you can kind of see that Clark County has a lot of pockets where over 20% of folks living there are over 65. And I see Yolanda has a question or comment.
Yes, and I'm enjoying the data that you're presenting to us. But once again, I need to see Washington State called out. I need our region, Vancouver, Clark County called out with those numbers, not just the IBR program and the Metro Portland area. I need Clark County or Vancouver called out with that same data.
So I will clarify that I've called it the Portland Metro region, but that does include Vancouver and Clark County. And so this, are you saying, Yolanda, more of Washington besides just the Southwest Washington side of things?
No, I would like to actually, because on the data that you're showing us, it doesn't call out Washington State at all, any part of Washington State. You're clarifying now that it is, but I would like to see it broken out. If not just Portland metro area, switch it. I want to see the data show the Vancouver, Clark County area, and then the Portland area.
Oh, like
so we can actually see the true data for those the regions in those 2 different states.
Gotcha. Okay, well that's certainly something that we could put together and show you.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Shona?
I just wanted to say that the 2019 Community Health Needs Assessment for the Columbia-Willamette has more data that is broken out by region, including Clark County, and then also specifically by race. So you might want to, I was going to put the link in the chat, but it's disabled. But it's a good report of data that's broken out, like Yolanda mentioned.
Great, and that's and you guys are doing a nice job of priming us for the upcoming conversation. So
okay.
If you can also, send me that stuff, but also if you mention it in the small groups, we'll make sure to note it so that we can follow up and use that. So this is perfect. This is exactly what we're hoping to do here. So I've got a couple more on the populations. The population of young people under 25, the program area in 2010 was actually pretty similar to the rest of the Portland, Vancouver, Hillsborough region, about 30% with a concentration of young people in that area near Clark College and east. And then in 2019, it's actually lower than the region as a whole. So 21% are under 25. So again, a little bit of an older population in our program area. Then finally, vehicle-less households. So I showed you in 2019, we have a large percentage of households that don't have a vehicle. This was also true in 2010, but it's even more so today. So 2010, you see that there's a concentration around the program area on the Washington side, where you compare the Portland metro region at the time was 9% had 0 vehicles, but the program area had 13%, which might not seem like a lot, but in terms of actual thousands of people, it is pretty significant. And then it's similar in 2019, particularly concentrated in downtown Vancouver, but 15% of households. So about 1 out of every, I think, 6 or 7 is what that means. And so a lot of folks relying on other means to get around. The last piece I will go through, and there's a lot on this screen. It's a lot of colors, but I'll try and walk you through it. This is showing jobs information. And so what's on the screen is both sides, again, of the program area for now. I'll show you the fuller region in a sec. And the darker the color, the more jobs are in that area. So the darkest color is over 1,000 jobs in those areas. So you have around Clark College, you have a couple pockets in downtown Vancouver, along where the Port of Vancouver is, where Pearson Airfield is, and then along Fourth Plain Boulevard. I'll show you if we look at like where the transit service is. So the Vine bus rapid transit that C-Tran runs, that goes along Fourth Plain Boulevard and serves a lot of high concentration job areas, job centers, we could call them. And so that goes into downtown Vancouver and connects, it does kind of connect that neighborhood that we were looking at that seemed to have a higher concentration, people of color, low-income households. So there seems to be somewhat of a connection there. And then if you look on the Oregon side across the Columbia River, we have, going, I think a lot of folks are probably familiar, that north shore of Oregon along the Columbia has a lot of warehouse jobs, a lot of industrial area, and of course PDX Airport, which are all very large employers. The max yellow line I'm showing here that goes to the Expo Center, so right by the current interstate bridge, but then you have a lot of jobs on Hayden Island, a lot of retail and service industry jobs there. But this kind of gives you what we're looking at in terms of where the hotspots are for jobs and transit service. And then to give you a better picture of the region as a whole, zooming out, again, same scale, where the darkest spots are areas where there are 1,000 or more jobs. And I've got the program area with a dotted blue line there. And so you can, I certainly see some patterns here, but I don't want to kind of bias what others are seeing. But I do want to, some that are probably just pretty straightforward. I mentioned along Oregon, the north shore along the Columbia River. You see there along Highway 26 out in Washington County going west, right below where the Legend is. A lot of jobs out there, and along Highway 217 going south. Of course, there are large concentrations of jobs in downtown Portland, out in East Portland / Gresham, and in Clark County in various places. There's actually quite a few places with a lot of jobs. So with that,
Shona wants to ask something. Shona?
I'm sorry, I didn't lower my hand from earlier. Sorry.
Okay. Great, great. No problem. Sorry, Jake.
No worries. All right, so that is a quick run through of definitely not all the data that there is, and not all the data that we could use to look at how we're going to screen different options for the program and how we're going to measure success. So now we are going to discuss this stuff. So Brent, actually, before we do, I should ask if there are any clarifying questions before we get into the breakout rooms and kind of discuss this in more depth. I'm gonna pop the questions in the chat, and we'll have 4 breakout rooms. Each will have a facilitator / note taker. So we've got that covered, and we should have at least 20 minutes to talk. So hold on just one sec. All right, Brent, you ready to put us in our breakouts?
Yep, just want to confirm that 20 minutes is what you'd like.
I think so. Well, actually, let's do 15, and then we can leave 5 for a quick report out.
Okay, 15 minutes, just like before, you'll go right to your breakout rooms. If you're part of the interpretation or closed captioning teams, I'll bring you back to the main session. Enjoy your breakout.
All right. Hi, everybody. So we are back. It's Roberta here. And how about maybe three or four either takeaways from that conversation or areas of focus that you want to shine a light on?
This is Yolanda with Washed Out. One of the areas that we felt should be focused on is housing and making sure gentrification, even though it's a reality, making sure that there is housing available to low-income families once the bridge is done in that same area where they are now living, so they don't have to leave.
How about Lily?
Along the same lines as what Yolanda just brought up, in our group, we talked a lot about interest in sort of an ability to track displacement, in that one of our goals is to prevent displacement. And so if the demographic data can be analyzed in a way to monitor that, that's a thing that many of us were interested in. Another thing that we talked about in our group was the importance of disaggregation and identifying intersectionalities between different. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of nods. I think we were maybe having very similar conversations. That's great. I'm glad to see it. Thanks.
Great. Great. One or two more? No. One thing that was shared in the group that I was in was in thinking about intersectional data, bringing different bits of data together. As Meg, you shared what it, that for you, you'd really like to see. What are the percentage of people with disabilities over 65 living in an area? And then what does that, what options could that mean around bridge access and whatnot?
Yeah, I thought that was a good, a couple folks in our group said, I've showed a lot of percentages. What are the actual numbers of people that we're talking about? So that's certainly something I've written down on my list.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to shift because we are at time for public comment. So I want to pass to Janelle.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Hunt. And if we could get the slides up here as I get my clock going here. So just a reminder for everyone to make a verbal comment. Wait till Jake is done here. Okay, to make a verbal comment, to make a live comment via phone, you may dial 669-900-6833. You'll want to put the meeting ID, which is 986-0940-5983, as well as the passcode, which is 701376. You'll want to dial *9 to raise your hand. I'll call on you when it's time for you to provide comment. Dial *6 to unmute yourself. Please provide your name and affiliation. Commenters will be given 2 minutes to speak, and please moderate your time because I do not get pleasure out of cutting people off, but I will. So please, 2 minutes to be fair for everyone. Next, if we run out of time and you have not had a chance to speak, you can still provide a comment after the meeting. Next slide, please. To submit comment after the meeting, you may fill out the comment form on the program website or email your comments to info@interstatebridge.org with EAG Public Comment in the subject line. You may also call 1-888-503-6735 and state EAG Public Comment in your message. Written comments need to explicitly say EAG Public Comment in the subject line or in the body of the message for them to be identified and distributed to EAG members. All written comments must be received prior to 48 hours in advance of each upcoming meeting in order to be distributed to advisory group members. Comments received after that point will be distributed to members in advance of their next meeting. Next slide.
That's
and I think that was it. So Brett, how many folks do we have wishing to address the EAG?
Tonight, we don't have any.
Maybe we'll give it just a moment in case folks are wanting to look at the instructions here. And so maybe Dr. Hunt, we can go to the last item. And Brent, just ping us if we get anyone signing up. So Dr. Hunt, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, great. So actually, this gives us a bit more time to talk about what people discussed in your groups. So can we have some more reporting out? And specifically, in our group, there was a lot of talk about partnership, the reality that this is that ODOT and WSDOT are not, let's say, they can't do a lot of the things that on their own that we are interested in seeing. And so really what partnerships can be activated to help reach stronger project outcomes. And so I guess in some ways it becomes what partnerships would you like to see? And yeah. Caitlin.
Thanks, Roberta. This is Caitlin. Yeah, so I was in your group, and I think the partnerships is something we were all agreeing on, that this work is going to take partnership because it is very interdisciplinary and kind of cross-sectional, but that it also to identify, I think, what we need, what the ask is to each partners. This data analysis is really key to that and super important. So we talked about going deeper with the analysis and looking at additional indicators in kind of transportation justice specific indicators, and trying to understand correlations geographically or otherwise, or kind of key disparities. And so drilling in on some of the examples that we talked through were kind of time spent commuting by race or by income level, or transportation mode by income or race or gender or age. And I think some of this data will also be driving some of the traffic analysis that the program is going to be looking on when that effort looks at kind of like key origin and destination, understanding what modes and what people are going where and how, and getting just like that much deeper understanding to be able to develop indicators and identify the right partners to start addressing disparities.
Thank you. Matt.
I like what Lily just had to say about partnership. And I think another important thing about partnership can be that through the partnerships, you can also get a better sense of what data is needed from them and also what data they might have. But there were a lot of, there's a lot of big categories of statistics that I thought were, probably due to limits of time, but weren't presented tonight that I think are worth looking more into. Things like actual utilization of public transit, like Lily mentioned, but also things like safety and public health, the environment. These are really big categories of data that I just don't think we could cover all of it today, but just to keep in mind. And I know that the equity group focused also a lot early on about jobs and workforce equity. And I don't want to lose too much sight of that, because we can find data on, I think we could probably find data on, unemployment, employment by groups of concern or communities of concern, but also breaking that down into the trades that are most relevant to the project, like construction, service industry, and looking at persons with disabilities in those industries, BIPOC communities in those industries, and other communities that we're really focused on, immigrant, homeless. I think we can find the data, or hopefully.
Something I should have noted is part of the analysis was looking at, we do have jobs by race and then by wage level. And so I looked at the concentrations by those, and as far as I saw, I didn't see big differences in terms of, it was like where there are concentrations of jobs, those were also the areas of concentration generally for lower wage workers as well as workers of color, but certainly didn't do the complete thorough analysis that could be done. And then by sector, certainly that's something that came up in our group as well. So appreciate that.
And I also think it's a little bit about finding those benchmarks too, just to know where we're at now. So then you can measure where we end up, 10 to 15 years later after the project.
And Dr. Hunt, I don't know if we had a chance to introduce Nina Jones, who is the program's Civil Rights Administrator. So I don't know if we give Nina a few minutes.
Yes, Nina, please. Nina Jones, welcome.
We may have caught her away from her computer there for a bit, but Nina Jones is we'll be working closely with this group, and her primary responsibility is to oversee civil rights. Obviously, EAG is right within that as we look at kind of our definition. Nina, I see you're back now. And Nina, we just want to provide an opportunity for you to introduce yourself and say hello to EAG.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I am working on the project as a Civil Rights Compliance Manager. I'm super excited to be here. My history goes back to doing the Telecom crossing, which was, so working on bridges is nothing new for me, which was a really great and fun project. I officially work for WSDOT. So again, I'm so proud of this group already and so impressed already at the amount of engagement that everyone I'm seeing, and all the different partners and stakeholders who are, everyone's showing up for meetings and really just dialed in. So excited to be here and to work with you all. I've really enjoyed my breakout rooms. I wasn't expecting to enjoy it as much as I did. So really great. Excited to work with Jonelle and Jake. We go way back. We've done a lot of equity assessments and works, and even in my breakout room, and looking at the maps that I noted, I immediately triggered my thoughts around transit equity. How do we keep these people in these neighborhoods? How do we get them working on the jobs? These people are most transit dependent. All those kind of mitigation factors that we have the opportunity to be way out in front of. We know that anytime you improve a neighborhood, it typically gentrifies and pushes people out. So I'm so excited that this team is yeah, we're already thinking about that, Nina. We're already doing risk assessments on that. So I think that's going to make doing this job not only important, but fun when you can really see the impact on people. So yeah, I think overall just excited to be here.
Thank you, Nina, and welcome to the group.
Good.
See you all.
All right.
Especially you too, Roberta. We go way back.
I know. I thought Nina. So good. So good. All right. So how about let's just do 2 to 3 takeaways from the meeting, just in terms of overall, anything that maybe that you're sitting with. I think I'm sitting with the just well-being of listening to everyone in the small group at the beginning. One or two more?
I can go. And it was great to hear Nina, Steve Nakana here. I think what I'm sitting with is an alignment or want about data and how to deal with both qualitative and quantitative data, and just dealing with how we get a handle on that.
Great. Great. One more?
This
Yolanda?
is Yolanda. Yeah, this is my one takeaway, and you guys are going to like, why can't you just stop? Is to make sure that Washington, that Vancouver and Clark County is not included in the Portland metro area. They're not in Portland, they're not in Oregon, they're in the state of Washington. So that data needs to reflect that.
And I like to speak to that. This is a by-state, by-community project. And what we're looking to do is build a piece of infrastructure that connects both of these communities in a positive and affirming way. So I hear you as far as cutting through the data, but we cannot approach this as these are two separate communities, because there are commonalities that these communities share and that we have to recognize. So,
and I totally agree with that. But by just saying that it's the Portland metro area, discounts all of Southwest Washington. This is a by-state project. So any data that is reflected in that should indicate that.
Right. So I hear a need for us to shift our language so that we reflect more of the expansiveness of what we're actually looking at.
And just to clarify, Dr. Hahn, I do want to clarify that the data that Jake did illustrate does include Clark County as well as Multnomah County. So it is both. Perhaps the language, which is pretty similar here, the Portland Metro region, I think we probably could start calling it the Portland Vancouver Metro region to clarify. But Jake, just for clarification, that data did include both sides.
Right. I totally just shortened it to Portland Metro as far as what I called it, just for familiar parlance. But it is Portland, Vancouver, Hillsborough region, so it's the entirety. But we can certainly make that more clear going forward.
Yes, I welcome our culture shift, and language helps culture shift. I also want to acknowledge that it is 7:30, so we have we have our future meetings. June 21st is our next meeting, 5:30 to 7:30. We will dive deeper into our equity framework, equity lens. We will discuss screening criteria and performance measures. Tentatively, we have a July 19th meeting, and the time is tentatively set for 5:30 to 7:30. Details to be announced. All right. So we have Brent is going to offer us a really quick poll that will take 2 seconds. So Brent, 2 seconds.
The poll's been launched. If you could just select one, that'd be great.
It's just
How would you rate tonight's meeting on a scale of 1 to 5? 5 being great, 4 pretty good, 3 neither good nor bad, 2 needs some improvement, 1 needs significant improvement. Please participate in the poll and then peace out. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening. See you
Bye.
next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
All right. Pretty good's not bad. Thanks, Brent.